than red. So it's technically an improvement. All right, I'm Don Ford. This is Brace for Impact from Organizing for Better Tomorrow. We are here to talk about a whole bunch of things. Got a little bit about Trump. I feel like you can't do like a news-related show without talking about Trump a little bit because that's what Trump would want. No, I'm kidding. What a horror show. Just what a mess. If you get confused about my position, don't, because total shit show. RFK, even bigger shit show. So it's like, wow. But before we get to that, I want to cover a little bit. We are a COVID conscious show in the sense of thing, and there has been kind of a win from someone in our group going on in Los Angeles. Polly, do you want to share with everyone what's going on?
Yeah. Los Angeles City Hall tomorrow will be voting to officially recognize Long COVID Awareness Day and annually light up City Hall the color teal on March 15th. It's been a ongoing effort by myself and some others. Want to also shout out part of that as well. And yeah, it's a good way to recognize the growing and ongoing crisis of long COVID. So, it's a good way to legitimize it and keep reminding people that this is still a crisis. So tune in to watch City Hall tomorrow. Some of us will be down there giving public comment in support of it. And yeah, excited to keep the awareness going.
Yeah, so my understanding is this is going to be like a big package of days that they're going to be recommended. So they're not voting. It's already included in a bill, so it would have to be excluded to not get passed. This is likely to go through. So this is a good time to be like thankful and grateful to your representatives who actually added these things. And like, it's like we protest and protest and protest, but when we get what we want, we do have to turn around and actually thank the people who are involved. And even sometimes there are people... Like when I did the superdelegate reform, there's a picture of me with the current DNC chair, he wasn't the DNC chair at the time, he was the ASDC chair, but he was the person that a lot of the conversation had initially happened with to get the ball rolling. Seeing that picture, I look back at that and I go, wow, it's so weird being from the two ends of the spectrum, but that you get it done, and you gotta say thank you. At least a little bit, because it's without these people making that votes. So great job, Polly. On that one. I know you've been fighting for this for a couple of years. So hopefully this will be an example for other cities and other places to really recognize it as a present problem, not a problem from when the pandemic was happening. We're still in a pandemic. It's still out of control. So, yeah, kudos to you, sir. And a little bit of commentary I do want to make to all the people who are like, these things don't matter, and it doesn't help. So I think I'm just talking to myself, and I had a big ego check just thinking about it in the free call. But to everyone who thinks, I know it's a thing we hear from folks, this stuff is actually really important to a lot of people. It's going to affect a lot of people, and it's not going to be most likely a one-time thing. It should be something, because this isn't going away, that they'll recognize every year. And that's just like really meaningful to a lot of people who are suffering silently. Like you see the people you see on social media, but there are a lot of people who are not on social media, thousands and thousands of people who are suffering, and we hear their stories usually too late. But these things give people a little bit of hope to sort of like keep going on. And even if there is anything, it is about like you gotta just keep going, which sucks to hear, but at the same time, when you look back, you'll be happy you did. Which I think is also a lot like getting this thing done in LA, because you just kept going and you kept at it, and then you got it done, and here we are. So yeah, good job again, Paulie. And I feel like this goes to speak to a lot of things going on with a lot of things right now, because SCOTUS knocking down Trump's tariffs, and then Tariff Baby coming back with a 15% flat tariff. Wait, isn't it only for a certain amount of days? He has like a limit for how many days it was, Jesse, you had said?
Yeah, they knocked down IEEPA, which is actually an emergency. It's the Emergency Economic Powers Act. It was brought forth in 1977. It was related to the hostages in Iran. So that's how it originally came about. So he kind of overstepped his bounds on trying to just do these blanket tariffs without actually going to Congress first. And that was what was struck down. So now, like like a baby, he is using one of the other tariffs that's at his disposal. There's 3 other ways that he can do these things, and they all have time limits or they top out. So 15% seems like the most that he can actually do, and it's one of them is at 150 days that he would actually have to get congressional approval. So it's just for now.
Undermining congressional approval sounds kind of like, well, he's the king, right? And then, like, yeah, but okay, hear me out. The purse strings, first off, he's not a king, so get that shit straight. But number 2, I guess it would be number 1, actually, really, and that's number 2, but because you got to keep him in the right place. Congress controls spending, and in order for tariffs to be effective, because I remember when the tariffs were coming in, I was like, well, let's hang on, let's see how they're going to do the tariffs, because tariffs, in theory, are not inherently bad. It's how they follow through and how it affects the public. If the public is paying for the tariffs are bad. If the government is paying for the tariffs because it can lead to lower prices by bringing manufacturing on specific things back to America. This is something Joe Biden did with microprocessors, because we had a big microprocessor crunch during peak pandemic periods when things were shut down. I should say during the shutdown, because peak is like when we actually looked and measured. Yeah, it was bad. It's still we look and measure, it's just as bad, but the just a little different.
You have to have an industrial policy to go along with tariffs, or else you're really just like passing something on to consumers, or just shooting yourself in the foot, or just doing what he does, like sort of tries to punish, other countries that he doesn't like. Maybe that they put somebody in a former leader in prison over something's real. Right. That's not how tariffs are supposed to work.
Right. Yeah. So like going to Congress and spending money, that you put a tariff on a thing, and then you have government spending to pay for the manufacturing, and in that is like deals for lowering prices with the people who take those subsidies. So you like have arrangements with whatever corporation takes that money to keep the prices lower, and then that's all how the government controls. People will be like, well, that sounds like socialism, and you're like, that's just how government works. If you've ever played SimCity, that's how it works. You know what I mean? And we do that with a lot of things. Like, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of other countries tariff our like milk industry and other things like that, because we put so much government spending into it to keep it going, that it lowers the price of the product so much that other countries can't compete. So our items. That's one thing Trump was going off about when he realized, it's like, yeah, because of our type of government spending that we have, which is socialism, by the way. It's actually just like in any sort of democracy, the government is supposed to spend money to make the public's life better. Or I should say in any functional government. Like, the government should be spending money to make the public's life better, because it makes the country stronger. Like, just in general, like, the more, even if you want to think about it like a warfare or manufacturing or anything, like, you have to, like, strong people come from your country. It makes your country stronger, even from like a basic production value. You get arts, all those things, really important too. Like, but when you think about just like the most basic thing that capitalists care about, they're not even feeding into like that really successfully, because it just, like, people should be able to have kids and feel comfortable about it. Now we have whole generations of people being like, no, we don't need that, and people are like, yeah, it's okay, we're gonna replace you with robots.
That sounds great.
I don't. Yeah. Did you hear about just on a side note, did you hear about the one of those robo taxis where there's no driver? It turns out that they were just I think they were in the Philippines, somewhere in Southeast Asia. Like the drivers, it was not AI driving the cars. It's drivers in other countries driving the cars remotely. People without American driver's licenses.
No, I didn't hear that story. That's crazy.
Oh my goodness! It's I cannot remember which one. It's one of the big ones. The ones in the cars that got burned up in the LA protests.
Waymo?
Yeah. Wait, Lee, what'd you say? Waymo. Thank you. Yeah, you both got it right. It's Waymo.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that those could be driven remotely. I thought it was all like a GPS.
Yeah, there's no. It's a person driving the car in a third world for a much cheaper price. They've like outsourced the driving remotely. So apparently they do believe in remote work.
I believe, like, if they get into a situation that needs remedied, that's when they step in, right? Like the remote, like it's still just as bad, but I think that's what
I
they're used
heard,
for.
I saw a thing from one of the main guys in the company being like, it's just drivers in another country. But we
Okay,
could,
I'm
but,
not surprised.
But we could revisit that talking point because there's been plenty of times that you, specifically you, have been like, didn't they mean it like that, Don? And I go, no. And then you look, and I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff. to
Well,
keep
yeah,
track of.
I haven't read this piece or read into it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's either or, but that's just was my understanding of it.
Well, that would definitely
prior.
how they would try to like sell it to. Well, a real human will come in, in case they run over someone's cat again, because they ran over that famous bodega cat. That was Waymo. I believe that was Waymo. Anyways, life is terrible, and they just keep trying to steal from us. It's like all these robots they're talking about. You get a robot for your house, but it's just like someone operating the robot in another country, because AI doesn't work.
Oh, just to finish off on the tariff thing real fast.
Sure.
One more.
Sure.
I think there's 1.5 billion that it needs to be repaid.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that the Supreme Court decision doesn't say how this is going to be.
They don't do
repaid.
those things, though. That's not something that they would do. They just cast a decision, yay or nay, and then it goes back to the lower court, right?
Exactly, yeah. But it was funny because Besson came out on the weekend and was pretty much assured, people that Americans aren't going to see that money.
What was the only thing Gavin Newsom has said recently that I liked was he was saying, I think it was him, saying a $1,700 tariff, check to Americans like they did during the shutdowns. And so it's like, first off, fantastic plan. Second off, there's a 0% chance they're going to do that in this.
Except for Howard Lutnick's kids. They're going to they're probably going to make money out of this. That's a whole other story.
If we were a decent country, Howard Lutnick would be arrested already. He was only his neighbor, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Only his neighbor. If you don't know, Lutnick is all over the Epstein files after he claims he stopped being... See, the problem is, it's sort of like when you catch your partner cheating on you once, and you kind of don't believe anything they say ever again. And it's like, he said he didn't hang out with him or do any of that stuff, and then he's like, there's all this... There's all this room of communication. And, it's very little, but it's enough to be like, yo, bro, I'm coming over. It's... you know what I mean? It's just
such
enough.
a point of saying, I never hung out with that disgusting
Right.
man ever again.
Right. Exactly. And it turns out you did. There was a really shocking number I saw today. Speaking of the Epstein files, which is something I try to avoid doing, but the accountability is real because we're seeing the ambassador and the pedophile formerly known as Prince got arrested.
Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew, and the what's the other guy's name? The ambassador to America. He was all over. Mendelsohn, thank you. Not the actor, but he got arrested too. I didn't hear what his charges were, but I assume. So apparently, 90. I saw some stat. Man, where did I must have saved it on TikTok? But I'm really doing bad at this because I'm remembering things on the go. I'm not remembering as well as I'd like. But there was a video I watched where they were showing how much actual content was in Epstein files of different things, and it was something like 90% of the photos were abuse materials, just a crazy amount of stuff that we're not seeing. That was just kind of just overload of it. They had to use programs to look at it and stuff, just completely. We're not even seeing the basic scope, but other countries are getting the unredacted versions. So
this Mendelsohn thing, I believe that his thing is leaking sensitive political and market information. It's not even I don't even think his thing is a sex related.
Oh yeah, because if Epstein is a spy and you're hanging out with him and you're in the government and you're telling him things to a spy, you're talking to a spy. So everything you're doing is giving away information you're not supposed to be telling people.
Yeah, no, I just find it amazing.
I bet he did it in emails, right? It seems like they were so out in the open about it all. Just
yeah, I'm not sure his whole backstory. I just found that sort of amazing that it's not Like, it seems like it would have to be a sort of salacious story in the United States for there to be sort of any kind of accountability, but there it's actually, political and market information that he shared to Epstein. Like, it goes, I don't know.
No, it's it's spying. That's
Yeah.
you talk to a spy about stuff you're not supposed to talk to a spy about. That's what that means.
Accountability is good.
I mean, however you're going to get them, because the thing is a lot of it's kind of like getting the famous gangster for his taxes.
Al Capone.
Yeah, it's like exactly. It's like getting Capone for his taxes. It's like it's you can't get him for the really awful stuff they did. Like even they were talking about on how many victims there were in the breakdown, that a lot of them were unavailable because they were not in America, they were in other countries. So you just so you just get them for whatever you can get them for, and usually like the thing they got Andrew for is can be whatever they want it to be, right? Because it's kind of the same deal. It's kind of spying related. And then the same thing for this other guy. It's like whatever they want it to be. And they're both old. So like a 5-year, 10-year prison sentence is you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. Which I don't know about Andrew, but the other guy might get it.
But proud of the UK for doing accountability. We should follow them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy though, because in America, it's back to you have to get them for the actual sex crime, because there's less like these businessmen aren't spying the way that those guys were. You know what I mean? Even if it's like accidental spying because you're hanging out with a buddy, but that's how spying works. That's not accidental spying. That's just spying. Man, what a mess. What a mess. Yeah, almost the biggest mess is trying to figure out how the tariffs are going to get repaid, because that is, I do not, just on a side note, going back to that for a second, I don't feel bad, I feel very bad for the other one, the I feel very bad for whichever judge has to sort that out, because no matter what he does, no one's going to be happy.
People are going to sue.
No one is going to be happy. There are going to be so many lawsuits. Everyone is going to be wild. I would believe if they don't get it solved like quickly and everyone goes okay, it'll probably take an act of Congress in the end to like get it all straightened out. Like it's going to be a fucking mess. It's almost like the president shouldn't do illegal shit. Hear me out. Hear me out. Maybe doing illegal weird stuff. I mean, if he just like was hawking goods the whole time, I'd kind of like, oh, whatever, look the other way. But like, he's like enriched himself by like $1.4 billion, and you're like, and this is something I really appreciate, is there's a lot of talk about how the only thing I want to hear from anyone are people who are going to hold these people accountable. I want to hear from, candidates for office who the major talking point is holding these guys accountable to the extreme degree. You know what I mean? Like, we should be freezing those assets that he took, that the government, those assets that he took, that he stole as president, those assets should be frozen. Like the Stephen Miller and the dog shooter lady, and I know her name, but I'm just saying, it's just like these people need to be held accountable. Like, they've committed crimes in their offices, and you can't hold them accountable while they're doing it because of how the Justice Department works. It's not a feasible option. You know what I mean? How do you hold someone accountable when they're in charge of whether or not they're accountable?
And it sets the historical record straight, like to actually show that this isn't right. These things aren't right.
Yeah.
And it can happen in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And we also need a lot of things codified in government in general, like how ACIP functions, how the CDC director works. Like, if you care about public health or don't, you should care about whether or not the CDC director's role is actually necessary, because they basically made it so that the reason that Bhattacharya is taking over as NIH director and CDC director is because the CDC director is not a legislated position. Like, it is, but it's not. It's not mandated. They have all these ways. 210 days they can have someone in there.
As an acting director.
Acting director.
Yeah.
And they can do everything the normal director can. So, like, that seems like, and that's how they're abusing it. That shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be like set up like that. And I did say
Jim O'Neill, if he didn't step down in March, he would have had to have a confirmation hearing to become director, or else he would have had to step down.
And I'm not sure if they're like doing it, avoiding it because they can, or if they're avoiding it because they don't want the additional scrutiny. But I think it's some combination of the two. Like, I think a big portion of it is just like, well, they can avoid it, so why would you go to a confirmation hearing, get all that attention in your life? And none of these people are really like equipped for the job. You know what I mean? Like, you probably do better off putting me in some of the spots of some of these guys, which is a scary thought, but also kind of half true. So it's actually, Jesse, I think you'd do a better job. You would do a better job. I'll tell you what, it'd be a chill place. It'd have a good vibe.
Hang out with Evil Kenny.
You'd fix that vibe right up. I know you could. I believe in you.
That's Malone, by the way.
Oh yeah, Malone.
People who don't know who Evil Kenny is.
Malone just really proved the broken clock is right twice a day theory, because he published that article on mRNA and IgG4, and I was like, God damn it, this is all stuff that I've talked about at great length, which is frustrating because now it's a right-wing talking point according to a lot of people who are only being introduced to it now. But you're like, no, this is a problem we've been talking about for a long time. I'm like, yeah, because you're on Malone's side. And I'm like, well, I mean, technically, on this one issue, on this one particular thing, because the science is actually surprisingly not as complicated as it's made out to be. We're not going to get into it right now, but basically, here's the short version. You have 4 types of immunoglobulin, right? And it produces what you need to fight off infection. Your 1, 2, and 3 are your traditional ones, and 4 is something that exists in a zero-sum system with 1. 1 triggers a bunch of things that lead to T cells and more IgG2 and IgG3, which is all really important for your immune system. When your IgG4 gets high, it's not that IgG4 itself is bad, it's that it reduces your IgG1. So as much as it's not necessarily bad, it doesn't do all the things that IgG1 does. So when zero-sum system means that it's 100%. So if you have 30% IgG4, you only have 70% IgG1, which is about as high. It doesn't really go too much worse than that but if you have an autoimmune disorder. But it's also tied to autism, which is really interesting. I don't really understand the mechanism there, but I've read a bunch of literature about it, which is probably why they're more the autism and infections can be a lot worse, because it has to do with this imbalance. But the problem was that mRNA and the DTaP vaccine, the anticellular pertussis antigen, does it too, that it creates this IgG4 response if you get 2 shots close to each other. And that can lead to like a whole bunch of problems. That's why we don't really do mRNA 2 anymore, because we have a memory. It really went on a tangent. We have a memory response problem when it comes to mRNA vaccines, and it would be largely resolved if we did 2 shots with 2 exposures. But the problem is you end up in this IgG4 where you might actually be more vulnerable to infection, and then the data would make it look worse. So it kind of gets into this sort of like really nuanced sort of situation where with adults as boosters, not really a problem, not really an issue. First exposures, it's a problem. And it's a problem when you get too close to each other sometimes. So when you talk about initial vaccination, you're vaccinating children, right? So normally with the DTaP vaccine, we space for this already. So when the IgG4 is expected to happen, you don't get any vaccines for 6 months. With mRNA, that has the same problem. We never adjusted our vaccine schedule. So consequently, you're running into this problem where like measles vaccines will be less effective. So we're seeing more people with partial vaccine. And this is important, actually, if you care about fighting RFK on the measles vaccination issue, because it really comes down to this idea that there's a good chance we could see more partially or fully vaccinated children ending up getting measles because they got their measles vaccine when they were in this high IgG4 state that we did not accommodate for. And so that will feed the anti-vaxxers' argument that the vaccines don't work because more kids are going to get infected. And in this case, it will be the vaccine. Like they always say it's the vaccine, but in this case, it could very well be the IgG4 response from the initial priming series of mRNA not accommodating for the IgG4 response, and then other vaccines, given in that 6-month period, could be less effective or not effective at all. So it does really matter. It is really important issues. This is something that I've been talking about for a long time. But the thing that kind of ticks me off about it when we talk about Evil Kenny, which is hilarious, by the way, I can't get over that. They don't care about that. They don't care about getting, because what we should be doing is getting Novavax for kids approved and then turning off mRNA for kids, and it would have a better response. It would be safer. It would have lower AE. Like, everything about it is good. It would be more effective, and it doesn't have this IgG4 issue. So we should be doing, but they're not going to come up with that solution. They're going to try to use this to say we shouldn't vaccinate kids at all. So, scream at the clouds.
So that was his broken clock moment. That was,
he's right about the IG4 being problematic and why it's problematic. I read most of his article. I really should go back and read the conclusion before I say what his conclusions were. But
the idea of fixing things and making things better, that's probably not on the table.
Well, I mean, it's possible. I mean, here's the thing. It's kind of like you can look at the past as the past, or you can look at the past as a collective, future that we experienced. And so, if we look forward, being well, there is an opening here to maybe we can get through. Maybe we can. Hey, if you think IG4 is an issue, and I agree, wouldn't this be an argument to get Novavax approved? Because maybe there's a doorway to get him like an off ramp.
Right.
You know what I mean? There might be. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he hasn't considered that. He's too busy focusing on evil things. I don't know. But I do think that when you see these situations, there's a chance to be like, hey, well, what do you think about this? And maybe you get them to adopt the idea. I mean, I've had a lot of success with that over the years. The trick is that you have to make them think it's their idea, so you don't get any credit. It's
sort of like a diplomacy thing.
Right, yeah. He's a little bit, yeah. Well, wouldn't it be, just thinking about it, put spitball in here, friend. And yeah, so that's a possibility. I think anything that moves up the Novavax pediatric approval is a big win. It's frustrating too, because I feel like Novavax putting their work off to Sanofi, which I mean is working out okay, I guess, as long as they keep the products going. And we're gonna hear more from them at the VRBPAC coming up next month on their combo vaccines and flu vaccines, because in the whole shadow of the mRNA thing, we are seeing big improvements in the flu vaccine coming up potentially with the Novavax technology, which would be really great. But with Sanofi, I'm not sure that they really know what they have, and they don't know how to advertise it. I feel like they just don't know how to sell their product in this case. And it's sort of they're supposed to do an advertising push this next year, because they said they weren't doing one this year. They're supposed to do one this coming year. And I don't know what's going on. I feel like you run into the same problem. And we had a meeting with Sanofi marketing. I'm not saying this in a vacuum. We had a meeting, me and Polly, who spoke earlier, we had a meeting with Sanofi's marketing, and they're part of their science department, I don't know, last year. And it was pretty clear, I was explaining to them how to use the product. They had no idea. They were coming at me being we don't want anything to be used off label or anything like that. I'm we already got the FDA and CDC to sign off on this. We've been doing this for 2 years. But Novavax wasn't involved with that decision, so it's not part of their pitch to Sanofi, so Sanofi doesn't know about it. So they're well, we don't know about that. I'm we've already been doing it for this whole time. That's one of the reasons the vaccine's so popular. And it has basically it comes down to a combination of people needing a new priming series and how we got the timing. We as a group here, we organized getting the timing set up and making sure everyone had access through the FDA and CDC, making all these presentations. We actually we're going to be making a new one in about a week for influenza to talk about a whole bunch of things going on with these vaccines, to sort of push a better direction. So this is something we've been doing very consistently. And we are advocating, by the way, on the side note, we are advocating for 2 things right now, really important. One is, God, it was yesterday, so my notes are actually right here still. We want an earlier COVID vaccine update so that it aligns more with the school year. And then we want pharmacies like CVS and Costco, who distribute Novavax, to stop pulling the vaccine early. They keep pulling it in the middle of the month instead of when the vaccine actually expires. And a lot of people are waiting till the last day to come in and get it. that call, that push is also probably going to have to come from Sanofi too, but that's the thing. So basically I had this talk with Sanofi, and I was breaking down all the different ways that we talk about using it and how we've approached it with the different proposals and all this sort of stuff. And because they didn't know anything. They just knew that we had organized like a couple of calls at this point. And so I was explaining how it's used for long COVID, which, by the way, if you don't know how it's used for long COVID, we got it set up so you can get Novavax every 2 months under the immunocompromised rule. And if you have long COVID, you're immunocompromised, don't worry about it. We set this up for you so you didn't have to get through like diagnosing long COVID. You just can self attest for as immunocompromised. They're not allowed to ask for proof or prescription or anything. And someone might try. You can report them to the state pharmacy board. People actually get in trouble. But the idea is that Novavax has a mechanism that increases the breadth of your antibodies after multiple shots. And the idea, the theory, at least this is my theory, and we've seen this in a lot of data, but it's just not a widely accepted theory. The theory for persistent virus is that the virus has mutated beyond the range of your antibodies. Your antibodies form at the beginning of your infection, and they don't really adapt. When we talked about the memory issue earlier in the call, so they don't really adapt in that single thing. So as the virus continues to mutate, it mutates away from the initial antibodies, and then they just like post up. And some people can have 2 or 3 different types of variants persistent in different parts of their body at the same time. When they actually do testing, right, they find pretty much everything you could think to expect, they find. So you can have like multiple variants doing multiple things. And so with Novavax, you're trying to, first off, Novavax updates your memory response with one shot because of the saponin-based adjuvant. Now, I'm not in business with Novavax. If I was, a lot more people would be getting the product. But like, this is just me trying to explain how it works. So basically, because of the saponin-based adjuvant, it's like spicy food for your immune system, right? It like it makes your immune system works better. It triggers IgG2 and IgG3 independently and effector cells independently of IgG1. So it overcomes the IgG4 issue right off the bat. That's really important. And actually, if administered with the DTaP vaccine, might actually be really good for kids because they might not run into that IgG4 issue if they got Novavax at the same time, because it would artificially pump up the other aspects of it and counteract the actual deficiency that comes with IgG4 being high, because it's not the IgG4 I said itself, it's what the IgG1 does that it's now doing less of that reduces your entire immune system. So if you increase your immune system artificially and have the same signaling, it's kind of like how Dr. Pat Sing's thing works. Did I butcher his name? The LA Times owner. It's kind of like how his interleukin works. It like activates your white blood cells, like goes right to the source.
Oh, Pat Soon.
Thank you. I knew I was butchering his last name, just the worst. But yeah, no, his thing, it should work for some people. It activates white blood cells to like go to the source of whatever isn't supposed to be there, any sort of foreign thing. I think it will do better with some immune activation, with like a vaccine. That doesn't have to be Novavax, it could probably be any vaccine, honestly, but Novavax will probably do it the best. But the thing is that, so what is going on here is that it increases the range of your antibodies. So this is how we're using JN1 vaccines now against XFG, even though the JN1 vaccine alone doesn't test great against XFG as a single shot. If you add multiple shots, it gets the same protection as it would against any of the more targeted variants. So the idea is that it can expand the range, so your antibodies can't see this persistent virus, and the Novavax increases your ability to see these variants, even if the variant didn't exist when the vaccine was made, because that's not how your antibodies work. So things get more and more conserved, and it can see more and more of what's happening and then go on to fight persistent virus. And so when you combine those two ideas, they counteract each other, right? Like one is a positive to its negative. One is increasing in range to get away from it, and the other one is increasing in range to catch it. And that's why it works better with some people than others, because like the sooner after infection you get it, the more likely it is to catch up with whatever persistent virus, and then the longer it is, the further it gets away from it. But there was some data, and I wish I had it in front of me, but there is some data showing it works better backwards than forward. I don't know what that's about, but it works better backwards. It picks up more variants from the past than it does future variants can get further away, because it usually goes about 3 shots and then it stops increasing range. So that's why you're looking at an update if you get them every 6 months, you're looking at an update every 2 years. And if you get them once a year, you're looking at an update every 3 years. So, so that's sort of the thing. And that's actually what's really interesting about Novavax. You know, I feel like, because even like we were talking about mRNA and Moderna, and what was that study that came out, Biff? It was saying, it wasn't the conclusion of the study, but it was illustrating something. And you weren't here when we were talking about this a lot. And we were talking about the benefits of the two vaccines and how the antigens were different. That was based off of the S1 and S2 presence, and how the furin cleavage site being intact in the mRNA antigen that's created from the mRNA was going to create an inferior immune response because it would separate. And this study basically backed up that idea that it would reduce the immune response.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It ends up separating, and then we found out that after that separation, S2 is never found outside of the cells, which is required for the creation of CD4 T cells. So so basically, with the first generation mRNA shots, nobody is getting that robust response against S2 like we would need to protect better across variants.
Because the S2 is a more conserved part of the epitope, or the epitopes in it are more conserved, so they basically means they mutate less between variants. So more variants have S2 in common than have S1 in common. And you will see little shifts, but it's not enough to disrupt immune responses. So getting your immune response lodged onto the S2, which is a part that your immune system can still see, is why it affects so many more variants. And this is kind of like doing the opposite, where it was reducing the amount of variants that it could see by having this issue, because it was only the less conserved part, which is why mRNA has to update every year, pretty much no matter what. But it's also, here's the thing. It sounds like, well, Don is being negative about mRNA again. I think we should unfollow Don because it's so mean to the product that's not protecting people, which is an actual thing that I've heard in not so many words. But it comes down to this idea that Moderna has already adapted to this with their new Spikevax, that they basically shaved all of the thing. What are the three? There's only like two parts of the spike in the Spikevax, right? Like there's the
Spikevax is the old one. The new one is mNEX Spike.
mNEX
Spike. I don't know
Thank
how
you.
to say
Thank
it.
you. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
mNEX. Well, it's in Next Spike. It's in the name. It's like really like Moderna Next Spike. It's like, right. That marketing team really went places on that one.
But yeah, there's the receptor binding domain and the N-terminal domain, which is what the new one focuses on. So they leave out S2.
Yeah,
completely.
they're just going to like the most basic part of it, and it's not like an active S1 anymore. It's just like the component pieces like broken down. So I feel like this also, we've talked about this before, that this has a really like low chance of causing more vaccine injury. I mean, this is not a pro mRNA. I'm still on the thing, but this should reduce vaccine injury if it is related to the overproduction of spike.
Wasn't the other thing that it was less antigen all around as well? In the mNEX, in the new one, the mNEX Spike?
Yes, there is much less. There's only 10 micrograms, which is compared to in Pfizer you have 30 micrograms, so 3 times the amount. And then in Spikevax for adults you have 50 micrograms, so 5 times the amount. I will say with that though, in Moderna's trials there hasn't been a reduction in systemic side effects, so headache, fever, fatigue for the next couple days. Even though there's much less antigen, they haven't really found a reduction in those side effects. So you're still going to have just as much of a rough time.
Makes me
but
think that
probably
the actual...
like Don mentioned, when it comes to post-vaccine syndrome, they were worried about with the accumulation of these S1 and S2 components. That's kind of what this study talked about also. The creation of those components and how they combine together to form larger proteins after they break off. But that might be contributing to a lot of the side effects we're seeing after mRNA. So it might have a reduction on those, but routine side effects are probably just as rough as the original mRNA shots.
Yeah, I wouldn't call,
which is interesting.
I wouldn't call that, like, so you're talking the difference between like AE and like long-term injury. Like usually, I guess it would be like a stage 4. No, because even like a stage 4 isn't supposed to be long-term injury. You just were hospitalized, and then they kick you out, and you're fine. So you're talking about like 5 is death. So you're talking about like something like in between 4 and 5 when you're talking about vaccine injury. That is like a long-term autoimmune like disorder versus just the general uncomfortableness of a 2 or 3 from getting vaccinated in general. It sounds like what I was thinking was going to say is what you basically said was how it sounds like it's not the mRNA itself, because we think about the mRNA as inflammatory, because that was a big problem they had to fix with it for a long time. But it comes down to, which they did supposedly fix, but it comes down to that the actual spike production, the actual production process, the thing that is like, it takes a lot from your system. Like the idea of producing the spike and producing the thing, like the actual act of what it does, rather than the shot itself, but the process. You know, that's kind of like my takeaway from it. So it's not really like
right. Yeah, 100%.
Because that means with mRNA, you might not have these side effects if it's doing something different, but it might be that overproduction, like beyond what your body is. Which something I used to talk about that a really, really long time ago, but it kind of got like pushed away as a theory because better theories came up. But it was this idea that it could exhaust your immune, and people say there's no immune exhaustion, but we did. IgG4 is a type of immune exhaustion. How there were examples of, like it's like your body creates energy in a specific way, and the way these shots work, it's pulling more energy from your body than it normally would. So it's like trying to, suck through a straw that's blocked. You know what I mean? Like it can create like pressure in your mouth or whatever. It's kind of like the same idea where it's like it's pulling more than your body's necessarily prepared for, and so it creates these side effects because you're just, your cellular structures are literally using more than they planned on using. Like it's like going for a jog that you weren't prepared for, kind of vibe. Which the more examples I use, the less it makes sense. So I should probably stop. I'll stop there. We'll just, anyways. But yeah, no, it's interesting to read all this stuff. It's a lot of validation for stuff we've talked about here on this show, which is sort of that's what when Biff brought to staff chat and he was showing, he's like, I'm not sure what to do with this because this is my takeaway, and I'm just like, yeah, this is stuff we used to talk about a long time ago. We don't talk about it anymore just because there was never a really good study to back it up. It was sort of like a theory. We had this theory that this thing would probably happen, and we were kind of seeing real world data that supported that. But now it's like, well, it's 100% what's happening because it's not even the point of the study. It's just something they talked about as a fact in the study. So I think that kind of matters. So when we talk about this, it's I think the point that I was trying to make here that really comes back around to an idea when you talk about the difference between mRNA and Novavax. When you think about the new Moderna product, is really important to understand because for its approval, and it is approved, they used a non-inferiority model, right? So they did a testing to prove it wasn't worse than like full-blown X and back and the thing. Okay, we're back. So if you're on YouTube, you can listen to this uninterrupted, but until I figure out why my internet craps out on me, we're going to be dealing with it. So you can follow us on YouTube to get it worked out. But what was I saying before we were disconnected? It was the we're talking about minimum versus maximum protection and how they set a standard of minimum protection, but they sell it as a standard of maximum protection, and that is a problem. That is a big problem. Apparently it didn't interrupt on Twitter. That's nice of it. Seems like it's still going. So that is a big problem. They're constantly trying to make their product seem like it is the same, like it's the best we can do. It's the maximum protection available. But in reality, it's the minimum of protection available. And it's really confusing to the public because we say things like all the boosters are the same, right? We say all the boosters are the same. But the truth is that all the boosters are not the same. And the protection level that you're talking about is the minimum level of protection, not the maximum level of protection. And that's a big difference. So hang on, I'm doing my share again to fix this. I'm just gonna wrap there. I don't know what the problem is. I have great Wi-Fi, I have great internet, but no, my actual internet is cutting out. So, if you're on YouTube, you made the right choice because you're hearing all this. Basically, the point is, we've been lying to people about what the best protection is, and it's super problematic. That's, I think, the core of the story. Right, Jesse? Anybody want to add to that? Okay.
Sounds logical. You all right there? We cut out, right? Little change of subject, but I was going to say if we're still
Not
still
on
there,
YouTube. Not on YouTube.
you can still call Congress the thing, the War Powers resolution against for to vote yes on a War Powers resolution for Iran. It's 1833 Stop War.
Yeah, that's something you should do.
It hasn't been introduced yet, and it's still pending. It's still all pending.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely do whatever you can. I'm going to make sure I post this so it actually shows up as a part 3, which is embarrassing.